911. What is the emergency?
Hi, it's Franklin Circle Court in West Valley City. 752, copy of patrol assist.
Delta 5-2, go ahead.
Respond to Sarah Circle to assist patrol on a missing family. Susan and Josh Powell, last name.
Welcome to the Escape Safe season powered by 1088 podcast. This is episode 13, a season focused on domestic violence and intimate partner abuse awareness into the disappearance of Susan Cox Powell, 2009. I lived it, I investigated it, and now I'm talking about it because I believe awareness saves lives. Yes, I do. So let's get after it. I'm your host, Ellis Maxwell. And I appreciate you for your support, your questions, and being here today. And we are into 2010 in this investigation. And up to this point, we have served 13 subpoenas and 10 search warrants since December 7th. Now, it was what we've served this all on, or mobile phone records, Susan's employer, when we was getting into the safe deposit box, credit, bank accounts, stuff like that is what these search warrants and subpoenas are served on. So as we dive into 2010, January 5th, we reach out to Susan's employer, and we're requesting through them now at this point in the investigation. We want all of Susan's emails. We want to gather up all of those emails that she had sent out, and we want to go through and review them. And we want her internet search history, her phone call records, and a copy of that power of attorney that Josh presented them with. Remember that when he showed up, it was probably a couple of weeks ago, 16 years ago, with the power of attorney for her IRA account. So we're requesting a copy of that as well. We received the return on the search warrant for Josh's mobile phone that he picked up in Tremont. So if we back up to December 8th, when he left the police department without his van and left, right? We discovered he had the rental car. And so anyways, he picked up a phone on December 9th. And so we got those records back, and this is what we discover. The phone was activated on December 9th at 4:37 p.m. And get this, Josh was in the area of Susan's employer at 5:50 p.m. on the 9th of December. And then he was in the area of his employer at 6:08 p.m. This is a whole lot more lies and inconsistencies that are now surfacing, okay? When I spoke to Josh, if we remember back when I talked to him on December 9th, remember I called him because I got his phone number from his mom, right? I called him, it was 6:10 p.m., and he told me he was in Tremont, Utah. And that's when I told him, I said, okay, well, you're about 45 minutes away. I'll give you an hour, and you need to be here at the station to get your van. Otherwise, I'm going to tow it, right? Well, the reality was he wasn't in Tremont. He was over at Susan's employer, not far, maybe 15 minutes away from the police department. Yeah, right? And so, and that's how police work is, right? So we have, December 9th, we've got him in, December 8th, we have him in the station. He leaves, goes AWOL, talk to him on the 9th. He claims he's in Tremont. We don't know. And here we are, almost a month later, and we're getting the return, and we're seeing, yeah, he wasn't in Tremont. And, and the question lies, right? Why was he hanging around Susan's employer and his employer at this time? Yeah, something to think about, right? I thought about it then and I think about it now. It's pretty wild. All right, so we go into January 6th of 2010, and I interview a witness that was inside the residence with the police department and Josh's sister and mom on the 7th, right? And so I was aware of these folks being in the home and being there at that time then, because I remember when I called and I spoke to the patrol officer, and I was saying, "Hey, what's going on?" Yada yada yada, and he's like, "Oh, these people, they're in the house." Wait, they're in the house? Get them out of the house, man. Why are people in the house? Right? I mean, we have a missing family, and her purse is there. Things are looking a little suspicious. Why are these people in the home? So, anyways, on this day, I finally reach a point where I'm able to follow up with these folks and interview them and talk to them about what they may or may not know, what their knowledge is. And they're friends, but church members of Josh and Susan, and they attend the same ward. But it's what they shared with me is they were out and about doing some chores and running some errands when they heard about the Powell family missing. And they also heard that the police were there, stuff like that, and Josh's mom and sister. So they essentially showed up at the residence to provide support to Josh's family, which is very kind of them. And because of how cold it was outside, everybody ended up piling up inside of the house in the front room area of the residence. And so as I'm talking with these folks and talking to trying to get what their knowledge is about the Powell family, they shared with me that there was a time where they visited the Powells, and Susan was very ill. She was navigating and dealing with a pretty serious earache. And while they were at the home visiting with her, the kids were just being obnoxious. They were climbing all over her. And the entire time, Josh is there too. Josh is completely ignoring this. He's not trying to manage these kids at all. He's not trying to help Susan. I mean, here she is sitting in pain and agony, dealing with this earache, not feeling well. And these kids are all over her. She's not doing nothing about it. But I mean, Josh could have. But these people pointed that out. That this was important to them. They said they could see that she was in pain, but they also could see that Josh didn't care. And he was only focused on his conversation, what he was talking about to them. And so they kind of picked up on that, found that was interesting and abnormal, and wasn't impressed with it at all. And let's see, they also mentioned that they've recounted a time where Josh had asked for some help moving like one of those big playground sets, right? Like what you'd have in your backyard, maybe with a swing and ladder and stuff like that. And anyways, Josh had asked for some help. And so this person had went over to give him a hand to move this. And when he showed up, there was a babysitter. And so he's like, "Oh, well," and he was kind of confused. He asked Josh, "Oh, are you leaving?" And he's like, "No. No." He's like, "Well, there's a babysitter here. I thought maybe you'd be leaving." "Oh, no, I got the babysitter because I don't want to have to deal with the kids." And, Susan was maybe at work, I would guess. But that was his comment, was that, he didn't want to deal with them. So, and they just thought that this behavior was abnormal, which, of course, I find it abnormal as well. I mean, they're your kids. When you want to spend time with your kids, yeah, of course, you might have some projects to do around the house, but that doesn't mean you get a babysitter and just completely ignore your kids. Anyways, moving on. So let's see. So this is about the time where I start digitizing this case. All right. And is what I'm working on today, 16 years ago, on January 5th, is all of the evidence from Susan's safe deposit box and her workspace. So we remember the last will and testaments, the journal, the notes, it's just all of those items that we had recovered, basically scanning them into digital files, PDF files, so that we have copies of them, and then book them and book the originals into evidence. Okay. The purpose of this was these documents and these returns, all of the search warrants, subpoenas, and then the returns of all that stuff and everything we're collecting. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of pages of documents. And, it is 2010, and I'm planning on going forward and being in a court proceeding against Josh down the road. I'm going to have to screen this case. I'm going to have to provide them a case file, and we really don't want to have to copy thousands upon thousands of documents and provide them. This entire case was digitized. Okay, everything was in a PDF format. And so this was almost kind of like the beginning of that, the starting of it. Let's see. One of Josh's hard drives that we recovered from his office, from the residence, from the original search warrant. It was a 300 gigabyte hard drive. That was a lot back then. It seemed like it's nothing nowadays, right? But 300 gigabyte hard drive. And this was sent to the lab, and the folks are working on it. And on today's date, 16 years ago, we discovered that only 64 gigabytes of that 300 gigabyte drive was actually available to view. The rest of it was encrypted. So we never, ever broke that encryption. We never got past that. We never was able to see what he had encrypted, if anything, beyond that 64 gigs. And a lot of his digital media files were like that, whether if it was hard drives, external, portable, laptops, whatever. Even like USB drives and stuff like that, flash drives. A lot of that stuff was encrypted. All right, January 7th, 2010. It's a Thursday. And detectives established contact with the state of Washington's Child Protective Services, okay? Now, primarily because of everything that we're now, I mean, not currently right now, but that what we've learned, right? What we've learned from friends and family, acquaintances, stuff like that, with Josh not having anything to do with these kids, right? Or Susan, and his complete absence from the family. And so, it kind of, it's starting to bring a concern for us, and as well as the closer family members. And, because, we know he doesn't help. He didn't help cook. He didn't help clean. He didn't help with the kids. He wasn't comforting with Susan. He just wasn't present. He just basically did whatever Josh wanted to do. And we're just hearing this repeatedly from people. And so now we're like going, well, geez, and we have no control, right? I mean, Josh is packed up. He left. I mean, it wasn't even 2 weeks. He left and went to Washington with the kids. And so, that first 2 weeks, there wasn't any serious concerns or alarms. There certainly wasn't anything present enough that we could get the state of Utah to take those kids. And even with this stuff, I don't know that they would even take them, the state of Utah anyways. But so we a detective reach out to Child Protective Services in the state of Washington, asking them, hey, can you go over to this address? Because we know that that's where Josh is when he was staying with his dad. up in Washington, and just do a welfare check, man. Just check on these kids, make sure that they're doing well and their well-being is good and the environment is good and stuff like that. And basically, they contacted us back, and we shared with them what we could share with them at the time in regards to this investigation. And so they spoke with their supervisor, and they came back and was like, "Yeah, no, we can't do this. It doesn't fall within our parameters, our guidelines to do this. You're going to have to contact the local police department in that area and have them handle it." Okay, that's fine, fair enough. So obviously we reach out to the sheriff's office and we consult with them, provide them the information. And they were very willing, and they went over to Stephen's residence and knocked the door and spoke with Josh and Stephen. And I don't know, I can't remember. Yeah, I think Josh was still there. I believe he was there. But anyways, no concerns. There wasn't anything present that nothing obvious criminal that they could take the kids. And so that was that. That's about all we could do with that. My co-case, he receives a phone call on this day, January 7th, from Stephen Powell. And Stephen, oh my God, this guy, dude, this is just the beginning with him and the wild goose chases that he sets up, I would say, and call them. Also red herrings, possibly. But with this particular one, Steve called to report, and he come up. I don't even know where he came up with this or how. I have no clue. Probably Josh and him were collaborating, trying to come up with ideas to pitch at us and throw at us. But he wanted to talk because he had concerns about a neighbor's conduct. That's it. A neighbor in the Powell family neighborhood there, his conduct, was not happy with it, but he would not go into any details with the detective. None. He was just like, well, you need to talk to my son, Michael Powell. And so the detective's like, all right, so he contacts Michael Powell. And Michael, obviously Josh's brother, they contact him, and while they're talking to him and asking him about this neighbor and asking him questions, he's finding it very difficult to answer these questions. He's finding it difficult to come up with words to answer these questions for the detectives. And that's kind of interesting to me because, and for me, it leads me to believe that this was all bullshit. And maybe this concoction, this story they came up with, maybe it was Josh and Steve, because why would Michael be stumbling with answering these questions regarding this neighbor that Steve says, there's a problem with him? Because, at the end of the day with Michael, he was in college. He was working on a doctorate's degree. The guy was in the military, and we'll get into some more of his background down the road. But there wasn't no reason for him to be stumbling with detectives in regards to what Steve was talking about, unless if he just was completely unaware of it. And I'm wondering if that was the case. So, because it was like he had no idea. But at the end of the day, there was no value that came out of these conversations with Steve and Michael. And we did follow up with this neighbor, and nothing came of it. Everything was fine. All right, January 9th. That's a Saturday. Get this, January 9th, okay? Got that? Take note. We're 1 month, basically, 1 month and 2 days, right? Susan went missing December 7th. December 7th. She was last seen December 6th, 2009. Here we are, January 9th, 2010, and Josh has rented a 26-foot U-Haul. And now he's at his house and he's starting to load it up. He's starting to call upon church members, neighborhood friends, family, yada, 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 to load his U-Haul. Pretty crazy, man. 1 month. Whatever. Yeah. Okay, January 11th. It's a Monday. So this is pretty wild. It's kind of a little ironic. So we don't know, right? We don't know what Josh is doing. I mean, we do know where he's at, what's going on, because we have a tracker on his van, and so we can kind of see what's going on there. But outside of that, we don't know. And so we and me and my co-case, we're traveling up to the state of Washington. And so this is my first trip up to the state of Washington, first of many. But here we are heading up there, and Josh has a U-Haul and is loading up his house. We had no idea. We ended up with that information through, I think it was some family or friends or neighbor, somebody notified us and kind of tipped us off that there was a U-Haul at the house and that he was moving. But like I said, we were already on our way up to the state of Washington. January 12th, we visited. So as I mentioned, we're up in Washington, right? So we go visit Steve Powell, Josh's dad's employer. You'll find this interesting. He worked for the state prison out in Washington, and he sold furniture that inmates made. That was his job. Yeah. I just kind of like to sit and bask in that, because if you know anything about this case, we put Steve in prison. So it's like, how was your visit, Steve? You know, one day you're a salesman selling the furniture. Next day I wonder if he ever built any of it. I wonder if he ever put any of it together. That would be interesting, right? But anyways, he took December 8th and the 9th off from work, we learned. Once he discovered Susan's disappearance, he took time off of work. So that's good information to know, right? We follow up on 6 different storage units in the area around Stephen Powell's residence. Now, you're asking, why are we searching or looking at storage units? Well, we wanted to verify that there wasn't any of those units rented by anybody by the last name of Powell, specifically Steve or Josh or Michael or any of the other Powell members, because there was a concern that maybe Steve has Susan. Maybe he was holding her captive in his home or holding her captive in a storage unit or somewhere because of his crazy infatuation for her. And so this came up. I can't remember who brought it up. Maybe Susan's dad. And so we followed up on that, and we went and searched. We went and visited a bunch of storage units, all the storage units around that area, but it didn't come up with anything. Nobody, and all of them were very, very willing to work with us, which was really awesome. But no storage units rented by any of the Powell members. So no luck there, unfortunately. January 13th is when Josh finally leaves Utah. So he's got his U-Haul all packed up. He's ready to rock and roll, and he's heading to the state of Washington. We conducted a number of interviews with friends, family, witnesses while we're up there in Washington. And one of them that we made contact with, this was pretty interesting, and this one kind of hit home with me when I heard it, when I got it. And I was just like, oh man, that's just awful. And I can't even imagine what Charlie was going through. That's their oldest boy, but this witness had contacted the police department regarding Charlie, and they stated that on January 3rd of 2010, she was teaching primary. And while and this is at church, if you're not familiar with primary, it's basically a class where a bunch of the little kids, they all kind of gather and they do some teachings, right? Well, Charlie is playing with the light switch, and he just keeps flipping it off and on. And the teacher, the witness here, is like, "Hey, Charlie, please stop doing that." And he doesn't. He continues. He just completely ignores her. And so she kind of tosses out a mild threat, right? Like, "Hey, stop playing with the light. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go get your mom or your dad and let them know." And he responded immediately, and he says, "My mom is dead," with no emotion. Just, "My mom is dead." Keeps flipping the light. And she was just baffled. Like, "Wait, what?" Right? And, she shared with me her concern. She was concerned because of how young Charlie was at the time. And for him to respond that way so quickly with no emotion, just cold, it just kind of was a little alarming for her. So she notified us, shared that information. So obviously why I am up there, I conduct this interview with her. She was not familiar with this case, so she didn't know who Charlie was. She had no idea. And it wasn't until after this situation that she was talking to another member, and the member's like, "Oh, that's this person. That's this case. This is down in Salt Lake." And she's like, "Oh," and she's kind of had heard of it, but wasn't that familiar. All right, during another interview, this one was with an in-law family member, and this one was pretty informative. They're all informative, but just, I guess, never mind. It's just crazy. It's crazy the amount of people that Susan had spoken to, but then what their observations were, what their thoughts were about, say, Josh, and what their knowledge was. So during an interview with an in-law family member, they had reported that they didn't care for Josh. They did not care for him from the very first day that they met him. He reported that a time in early mid 2009, he got into a verbal argument with Josh. And it was because Josh was sitting on his butt on the computer while Susan was dealing with the kids. It sounded like the kids were maybe being obnoxious again, and maybe just wild ubangies is what I call them, and they're just all over the place. And so, and Susan wasn't, maybe she was having a difficult time managing them is all I can think of. But this person was completely just frustrated with Josh because Josh was just completely ignoring Susan, these kids, sitting on his computer, and not doing anything about it, not helping her at all. And so this completely upset him. So he confronted Josh and he told him that he did not like how he treated Susan and the boys. And then that led to him demanding Josh to get off of his ass and to get off the computer to go help Susan with the kids. He says it never became physical, but he had to verbally be like, "Hey, stop and go help your wife," right? I remember this happened again. We talked about this with Susan's dad. Remember when Susan's dad had to go to Josh and be like, "Look, dude, get off of your computer." and get up and go be with your wife. She's sitting there having a baby and he's just ignoring her. So here's another situation where somebody interjects, demands Josh to stand up and do what he needs to do because he's not doing it. He describes Josh as being monotone, weird, annoying, anal, and it was his way or no way. Is kind of how he described Josh. If Susan wanted help with the kids, she would have to demand it from him. He also described how Susan's sister, this is crazy, how Susan's sister wanted Susan to be a bridesmaid in her wedding, right? Well, get this, Josh would not allow her because she would have to walk down the aisle with another man, and he was against that. So he refused Susan from being in her sister's wedding because of this. Now, look at this control and this isolation, man. Isn't it wild? He shared a time in the summer of 2008 where Susan called him and told him that her and Josh were arguing. And while they were arguing, Josh hit her. Yeah. Now, this is the first report of anybody that we've spoken to that has shared that Susan had reported that Josh had hit her. We've not ever heard that from anybody. And he basically told Susan, says, hey, this ever happens again, you better let me know and I'll deal with Josh myself. And he stated that after he told Susan this, he never heard from Susan again. He talked to Susan, but Susan never called him and shared anything, any of their arguments or fights, nothing with him ever again. And, why is that? Honestly, you have somebody that cares about you and you share with them, hey, this person assaulted me, and they come back and say, hey, that ever happens again, you let me know, I'll take care of it. I would think, all right, cool, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I definitely will, right? But she never reached out to him ever again about any of this stuff. So, why is that? Why is that? Is it because maybe she just wanted to be heard? Maybe she just wanted to vent. She didn't want him to actually fix the situation, didn't want him to handle her conflicts. She didn't want, Josh to get hurt. Why? I don't know. That's a pretty interesting one. And I think I understand. I think I understand that, maybe it's not good to, if somebody reaches out to you and they're a victim of abuse or violence, it's best to just listen, take it in, let them talk, and call it good. Maybe it's not a good thing to reply back and go, hey, if this happens again, you let me know, I'll take care of it, I'll handle them. I don't know that that's what they're looking for. And we don't want to spook them. We don't want to scare them. And we don't want them to not feel comfortable coming to us. So I think I understand it. But it is interesting. Something to think about for sure. Also, this was... I was wondering, this is the other thing too, because I don't believe this is the only account where somebody's reporting that Josh had hit Susan. He didn't see it. He claimed it was Susan that told him, but I'm wondering if it's misinterpreted because this is about around the same time that Susan had slapped or hit Josh during an argument. And we talked about that in the last season where she ended up leaving the house barefoot, going to another neighbor's house. And so that was about around the same time. All right, cool. I conducted another interview with the family members today. And she shared a time when she was visiting Susan at her home. And Josh had absolutely, again, nothing to do with the kids. He completely ignored the kids, and Susan described Josh as always being right. Never wrong. He's never wrong, never takes accountability for anything. Very pushy, but quiet. They didn't like the way that he treated Susan and how he would talk down to her, making statements such as, "Where's my food?" Or, "Take care of the kids." Or, "Why are you talking to your sisters? You should be with me." Yeah. Now, knowing what we know about this relationship at this point in the investigations, I think we can clearly and easily say, this is entitlement thinking, right? Coercive control, entitlement-based control, right? I mean, this is just another person with all of this stuff that we've seen and we've heard multiple times over and over again. The isolation behavior at its finest. Some people's response, here's one for you. So you have this, right? Now, these statements alone, right, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's the patterns, it's the history. That's what makes it what it is. That's what makes it important. That's what makes it coercive control, entitlement-based control, the isolation, stuff like that, right? But oftentimes, people in these situations, and I would almost think that maybe Susan did the same thing, but I've heard it over the course of my life, is, "Oh, that's just how he is," or he's traditional, he's old school, it's just that's how it is, or he just wants the attention, right? So they'll come up with excuses for the behavior. Now, if this all sounds, if this sounds like you're experiencing it now, or you have experienced it, or you've seen it, I think you need to take note of it. Yeah, take note of it, because that's not healthy. It's not healthy. There's some serious coercive control going on, and the isolation behavior going on, and it's, in my opinion, it goes back to respect. It's a complete lack of respect for Susan. In my opinion, he didn't care about her and he didn't love her, and that's not healthy. And that's what these relationships are. That comes down to property. She is a piece of property to him. That's it. That's all. Now, this is coming from the husband who wouldn't let his wife be a part of a wedding as a bridesmaid for her sister's wedding. Yeah, because she was going to walk down the aisle with another man. That isolation, that control, man. It's bullshit. I mean, come on. It's wild. They reported that they did not believe Susan ran off with anybody else or just left, and that Josh's behavior was very odd. They couldn't believe. They're also pretty baffled that Josh had moved back to Washington as well. So, all right, more interviews with friends. This one, this friend, here we go. Now, I'm going to jump ahead of myself, but this friend claimed to be friends with Josh before they were friends and knew Susan. And he described Josh as being quirky, strange, but fun, and stated that he was very talkative. However, he was never physical or affectionate with anyone, including Susan, especially Susan after they even met. And down the road, when they were all in relationships, basically Susan, Josh, him and his lady, they would get together 1-2 times a month when they lived up in the state of Washington. When Josh and Susan moved to the state of Utah, then they would only get together about 1 or 2 times a year. Describe the Susan and Josh's relationship as quirky and Josh being stubborn. And get this, Susan having a difficult time adjusting to the move in Utah. Now, this comment kind of hit me hard then, and it hits me hard now. Yeah, Susan had a difficult time adjusting. Oh, man. I was like, I was kind of wondering, like, at the time, I remember when I was interviewing these folks, I was like, yo, man, are you and Josh maybe cut from the same cloth or something? Because, some of this stuff that he's sharing with me, okay, but the other stuff, I'm just like, this is weird, right? I mean, of course she's going to have a difficult time adjusting. I mean, Josh isolated her from her family, her support system, her friends. I mean, thousands of miles away to the south from Washington to the state of Utah. Yeah, right? I mean, I'm sure she did have a difficult time adjusting. I mean, in my opinion, based off of her writings, and her own words, I would say about the best thing that came out of her moving here was escaping that creepy Steve Powell, her father-in-law. I would say if she was here today, that's probably what she'd say. That would probably be the best thing that led her to that was the best thing that came out of leaving there. Susan told them one time that her and Josh's relationship was not stable enough to have children. Yeah. Now that's pretty wild, right? So, I mean, that we're talking just, this is just a couple of years into the relationship, maybe. And she's saying that this goes back to, remember when Susan, like first in the beginning, she was saying, he's changed. I just want him to change back to who he was. And then she had this epiphany and it's like, oh, wait, he is the same person and he has never changed. He's been the same person, right? And so she's saying that right here, basically, saying that, the relationship isn't stable enough to have children. So that's pretty early. So that right there, just that statement alone tells me and tells all of us that this was right out of the gate, man. This type of behavior was going on and she was seeing it and recognizing it and talking about it before she even had kids. So they identified Josh as that he had a difficult time holding a job. So I believe this is more when they showed up down here in Utah, because I think he had jobs up there, but maybe he bounced around up there with jobs. But they basically said he just jumped around from job to job to job. He had a hard time holding jobs. And that makes sense. I mean, he kind of seems like a little bit of a loner, quiet, reserved, unique, different. Can't really socialize with people because he wants to dominate the conversations. It's not very friendly or warm, right? So, I mean, maybe that played a role with him maintaining a job. Susan shared with them that after having Charlie, she wanted a divorce. Oh, bless her. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, what would lead to that? You just have this child and now you want the divorce. But however, it was pretty quickly that she changed her mind. And it was after she had attended counseling. So pretty wild. So with that, we'll come to an end with this episode. And the one thing that that we're getting out of this, I think, is is we're back to the same types of control, right? You got the financial abuse, the verbal abuse, the control, the isolation. If any of this stuff sounds familiar to you, and I'll say this, if this episode gave you something to think about, okay, and you feel like you need some support or some direction, or you are ready, if you're in a relationship that is toxic and dangerous, and you are ready to get out, contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline. They can work with you to work towards a plan. Contact your local, state domestic violence program. I'm sure there's one in the state there where you're at, wherever you are. And you can always contact me or us here at Shield Balance Investigations, and we can help as well. But take care of yourself. You've got to be number one. You've got to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else. And you are important. Trust me, you are. So with that, thank you for listening. Be safe, be kind. Cheers.